Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing. I'm host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast, and I've got a delight today. I have a friend that I really can't wait to share with you. She's somebody that I've known a couple of years ago, met in a facilitator training of this process you might have heard me talk about, speaking circles, where you really are more committed to being authentic than you are about being a professional speaker. Hi, Julia.
Hi,
You wrote
thank you for
something.
having me here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited. So you wrote something, and I'd like to in terms of a bio, I'd like to go find it. I thought I had sent it to myself so that I could read it and give you some introduction so people know what you do, so that kind of perks up like, oh yeah, she is. So Julia Rebecca Miron is a mindfulness teacher and coach. Her mission is to make mindfulness accessible to more people by demystifying the idea that you need to be perfect and Buddha-like to practice it. And she believes that showing up messy is better than not showing up at all. And she's also a writer, and her writing has been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul. And she's currently getting ready to launch her own podcast. I actually think it's already launched because I have an interview to be on it pretty soon. And it's called The Messy Meditator, which explores mindfulness, messiness, and life. And in her free time, she loves hiking, listening to R&B and hip hop, connecting with loved ones, and doting on her dog, Disco. What a name for a dog.
The
Thank you.
irony is that my dog hates music.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the irony is my dog hates meditating.
No, I suspect she's pretty good at that.
Yeah, get real relaxed, huh? Well, we'll be able
Yes.
to talk later about the messy stuff and meditation and what you know about mindfulness. But I always like to start as close as I can to early memories of what it was like arriving in this universe and what kind of family, because I truly believe that's where we first find our sense of self. And do we feel confident? Are people welcoming us? Are they saying, yay, go girl, or are they not? And so if you could go straight there, why not?
Oh, wow. Diving into the deep end.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so my childhood is like this sort of it has two sides. Part of it was very idyllic, and the other part was very, I'll just stay on theme, messy, messy and chaotic. Lots of I'll just say that the people I was surrounded with were just blindly operating from their wounds, and so it was like these wounded people
Mhm.
raising me in a very wounded way. And yeah, just a lot of judgment, criticism, just tons of judgment. So I just felt I didn't feel safe to use my voice. I'll go there. I didn't feel safe in a lot of ways, but I just didn't ever feel okay, safe, accepted uh, as who I am. I had to do everything perfectly, but I never could because nobody can.
Absolutely.
So even if I did some things perfectly, someone would find something wrong with it. And it was just very chaotic. And in a lot of ways, I had to kind of be emotionally responsible for other people. And as a kid, that's not your job as a kid. Your job as a kid is to be a kid and
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't know how much should I go I don't know where else to go with that. I
Well,
could go
this
in a
is
lot of different places.
it's a great first snapshot. And I think this is what that people who listen to the podcast go, I can relate, that there was a family situation that, yeah, there was some, obviously some good stuff, but there was the ways in which the parenting, I'm getting kind of clinical there, aren't I? The way you or the way people are parented is because the parents come with their own limitations. And where you ended up feeling like it wasn't really an expansive playground for you to find yourself as a young one. And I'll just ask a couple of questions that came up for me as you were talking about it. You said not safe. What would be the consequence I mean, what was unsafe? If you
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'll start by also saying that I'm the youngest in the family. So I had siblings older than me too. So it was like it wasn't just the parents, it
oh,
was all of the people who towered over me, you know?
mm,
But I think, there was there was a lot of anger in the household. I often describe it as anger was the fifth family member, and it was also the favored child where it always got its way and it always got special treatment. So yeah, there's just a lot of anger in the house. And then on the flip side, the people who weren't like exploding angrily were repressing it, and it would come out as like passive aggression and manipulation. And so it was just like a lot of like mind fucking like that, just that kind of, I feel like passive aggression is almost worse than aggression because it just messes with your head so much.
mhm,
And so there wasn't, I don't know, it was like there was always an impasse where I couldn't move forward being myself or saying anything. It always just felt safer to hide. I'd just hide in my room with my dog, my childhood dog, and a journal or music. Like those were my therapeutic things. Or I'd just get lost in my imagination. I'd go play outside. The idyllic part was we just lived in this really beautiful place, and I'd go outside and play and get lost in my imagination. But as far as the safety, yeah, it was more about meeting their emotional needs than them meeting my emotional needs.
yeah.
So yeah, I think either the aggression or the passive aggression was where it just like, I couldn't, it just messed with my head a lot. And yeah, I felt like I couldn't just be free to mess up or just
Mhm,
do anything really. There
mhm,
was the lack of freedom there.
mhm. Yeah, and I really got the sense of where safety was is a retreat or withdrawal from that kind of environment. And then when you talk about safety, it feels like, oh, music, and, in your quiet room or in nature. And I think
Mhm.
listeners can relate to that also, is that that's where we find um, a quietness that then is not like bombarding us. We don't have to, our body isn't in a, hyper vigilant state because we are more relaxed. I mean, the trees aren't going to come after us and
Yeah.
a dog is something that you can love and pet and loves you back easily without
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
having to do anything. So I like hearing both sides of the danger that you felt, but also where you felt more possible for you to feel good about yourself and enjoy. It felt like you had some measure of joy, but it definitely was not right in the middle of the towers. Yeah, that was something the way
Yeah.
you just expressed it. And for those who are just listening and aren't watching, uh, Julia just went towers and she put her hands up and looked straight up at the ceiling. So those are the siblings, I guess.
Yeah. All of them. Yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah. And
go on.
I was just gonna say, and I think that retreat and like hiding in a way it helped me find a certain voice because
Ah,
I would start journaling, and that was the only time because I wasn't allowed, like, if I was saying something that somebody didn't like, I was muzzled and or worse, or just yelled at, or had gaslit, had it thrown back in my face, used against me. And so I couldn't ever just like, I never felt heard. And so I would go into my journal and I could just like get all of my anger out, and say everything that I needed to say, and I would write letters to my family because that was a way that I could say everything without being cut off, without being muzzled, without being shushed, without being, you know, having someone say, "How dare you?" If I were to say, "You hurt my feelings." So that helped me become a writer. It really helped me find my voice in writing, and so that's another sort of other side of the coin with it all too.
a benefit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And it's a little bit different than turning what is it, lemons into lemonades. It really is right in the midst of something that's difficult is where you can find your voice, and so that the voice, at least the writing voice, but it sounds like also the speaking voice was stunted, you might say.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, very
And
much.
and
I
then
there,
when
I
you
saw a video.
go on.
Sorry.
No, we're into
I
it.
I saw a video of myself. So when I was in second or third grade, we buried a time capsule, my class, and we said that we would uh, dig it up or open it 25 years later. And we ended up doing that with the teacher. And there was videos of all of us in the class. And the video of me, I was so shy and quiet that you could barely hear my voice. And I was so taken aback by watching that because you couldn't hear me. And all the other kids were like, and I was just like, I was just so in my shell, so in my shell.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, I feel compassion for that little one who got locked in there. And yet, something along the way brought her out of the shell. So, in terms of having a voice and, getting through high school and college and into the adult world, do you have any stories about that period of time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, oh gosh. It's been a journey and it's still a journey. I mean, if you're talking about like those, high school into young adulthoods, just some of the things that come to mind. One of the things that comes to mind for me is, I mean, for one, just getting out of my hometown was huge because then I could just be myself and, discover myself and who I am. And I'm naturally like a loud, bubbly, joyful person, but I never experienced that, I couldn't be that when I was younger. And I remember getting a bartending job in my early 20s and having to yell last call at the end of the night. That was a big one for me, where I just like, and I was so scared to do that because it was like a crowded bar and I had to, you're kind of in a position of power as a bartender.
Uh-huh.
And I had to step into that power, and just yelling last call at the end of the night. The first few times I did that, it was just I would have to like pump myself up to do it. And then over time I got used to it, and I would just, go in there with confidence, like, all right, get out of here, last call.
Uh-huh.
And so that was, I think, the very first, like,
Uh-huh.
very first little thing that ever happened. And then, should I go further past that time frame, or are
Go
you wanting me to
ahead. Let's
stick to just?
let's see what happens next.
Yeah. So, so in my late 20s, I was going through a very, very dark period, and I started going to therapy for the first time. And so that's when I really started to uh, just find myself in a lot of ways, and that was huge, and just stepping into my own skin in a lot of ways, and introducing myself to myself in a way that I had never known. And then in that process, I discovered speaking circles, and that was just I mean, that was so because I had at that point, because of everything I was working through in therapy, I had finally discovered that, oh my God, I'm a writer. I'd been writing my whole life, and that was the one thing that people had always praised me for, but I never thought it was something I could do. And then in therapy, I realized, oh my God, it completely makes sense that I should do this. And so I started exploring writing more, and then I realized, okay, if I want to put myself out there as a writer, at some point I'll have to speak, and it would be good for me to confront this fear anyway. And then right around that time frame, my dad passed away, and I knew that there would be a lot of people at his memorial, and I knew I wanted to speak at his memorial. And so I had already been exploring Toastmasters, or I don't know if I should even say their name on here, but I think I do think it serves a good purpose, but not for me, not for certain people. And for me, it kind of exacerbated the issue. And I went to a lot of different branches to explore, maybe I just need a different group. And
Mhm.
it wasn't helpful. And then somebody who had done speaking circles in the very, very, very early days told me about it, and he had been telling me about it a lot. And then I finally thought, okay, let me just look into this. And I saw the website, and it resonated so much with me. And then I went to my first speaking circle, and it was like just the first night, it was so transformational. It was so transformational. And it's just everything changed after that.
Oh, so much already what you've just
I know.
revealed. There was a phrase that I loved hearing, and I think I'm going to have to paraphrase it, but you talked about being in therapy and you introduced yourself to yourself, something like that. Of course, it's
Yeah.
all about getting to know ourselves and more awareness, but I just like that, hello in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that you are, Toastmasters is way more around speech crafting and speech delivery and performance techniques. And in terms of self-discovery, on the deeper level, to find maybe the wounds that have happened to us around our voice, it's a whole different process. And before we talk about speaking circles, I want to take just a quick break and then come back and we could open it up with talking about speaking circles.
Sure.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Hi, we're back now on the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with my guest, Julia Rebecca Miron. And we've been talking and tapping into Julia's history of coming from a family, older siblings, critical parents, just not a lot of room to expand into the fullness of being alive and to be heard and seen and get some good solid roots for confidence. And anger seemed to be in the air a lot, whether it was right out there or more passive. So where we are now in this journey in Julia's life is that in finding out that she was a writer, because that was one of her safe zones, was to go and be by herself and write. That's where she developed this ability to find her voice from her writing. And now we're at the stage in her life where she's exploring, I need to speak up. And maybe Toastmasters isn't the place to learn how to go out and share this value that writing is, I guess, is what we are now. And you found from a friend speaking circles. So tell us about speaking
Yes.
circles.
Yeah. And before I forget, I'm just going to correct the pronunciation of my last name is Myron, and everyone gets it wrong all the time. So I usually spell it how people sound it with a Y. Say pronounced Myron with a Y because people always get it
Excellent.
wrong. But anyway.
Thank you.
Um, so speaking circles, yeah, and to relate it to writing, I have discovered that for me, I feel like speaking circles is a lot like writing, what the writing experience is like for me,
Mhm.
where it's just you can kind of
Uh-huh.
just get into this flow. And so my first speaking circles was just such a transformational experience. And I immediately, I was like, take my money, sign me up, all the things. And I kept going for quite a while until I became a facilitator. And I still try to get on circles here and there also. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of the writing experience where I can just really tap into to my actual voice and what I really have to say and my essence.
Yeah. And because it's an environment where it's a quieter environment, so that is one thing, element of it that I think would work for people who are more sensitive like we are, that it is a place also. So it's quieter environment. There aren't expectations to perform or do certain kinds of speeches. It's just space, just like with writing on an empty page, space to listen to the moment and discover more about what the words are that's inside that want to be expressed, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because the more circles that I went to, similar to writing, I started to feel like, oh, wow, I think there's something for me here. I think I'm supposed to be doing something with this because this feels
Mhm.
like something that I don't want to qualify it as good, but it did feel like something that I was good at, that felt good, it just felt like there was a sense of purpose for me somewhere in that experience that I'm
Right.
still exploring and getting to know and figure out.
Yeah. Well, the journey is what I'm hearing today, the journey to be who you are and who you're meant to be. And I guess there's lots of avenues and lots of expressions that are available to us, and we just have to keep stepping into those in order to find them. And uh, this environment called speaking circles, I know pretty well because I have a similar situation where I would say that I held myself back, and the first speaking circle was transformative for me. And I'd like to I'll share first what was transformative, then I'd like to hear what was that first time, what was so more about what was so transformative. In speaking circles, you only give essence, appreciation, positive, what you'd like to see grow in the person, no correction at all. Just, oh, almost like, wow, you're amazing, right? And there's truth in it. It isn't just some kind of, encouragement to be more. It's just, this is my experience of your essence. And Lee Glickstein, the founder of Speaking Circles, said to me, magnetic, Doreen, you are magnetic. And that helped me see that, oh, I could be myself. I could be quieter. I didn't have to be dynamic and out there and pushing words and out into an audience, or even just, I know you said even around a table, it was hard to find space to be yourself. But so that feedback that night, I think, was a moment, a life transforming moment. And anything more about you? I mean, I know you said it was like writing and you were already familiar with that, but anything else about what the process itself is that you have found valuable?
I'll have to remember because it was over 10 years ago now. I mean, for me, it was much more about the actual experience than the feedback. Like, I don't even remember what the feedback was. For me, it was just this freedom that I experienced. I felt so safe.
Uh-huh.
And this thing that I had been so terrified of, and to reference, you mentioned around the table, when I was younger, there were times where I would feel sentimental at the dinner table and want to, make a toast, and I ding my glass and everyone would look at me and I would get so scared and I'd just go, cheers, and hold and, like just try to retreat back into myself because I was so scared to say what I wanted to say because, oh God, someone's going to laugh at me or whatever. And so, it was the opposite of that in a speaking circle. It was like, yeah, I just was so terrified of speaking in so many different contexts, so terrified. I mean, it was like my absolute biggest fear. And I stood there and just, it was like, you're standing there, there's no format really. You just, your time is your time and to do whatever you want with it. And it was like all of that fear and terror just melted away. And, I was sweating and shaking, I'm sure. I do kind of remember that part. And it didn't matter, because I
Uh-huh.
wasn't being judged. Everyone was there for the same purpose. Nobody was there to judge at all. It was the opposite, like leave your judgment in the car,
Yeah.
And so it just, yeah, just to be able to just stand there imperfectly, shaking and sweating and not knowing what to say
Mm.
and not having to be afraid of
Ah.
saying something wrong.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is
And
freedom. That's
yeah,
the word you use.
yeah,
And to be
yeah.
accepted, and not only so that then the essence appreciation probably helped you see that what was inside of you is what people were resonating with or listening to from a deeper sense, not your body, not even the words. This is wonderful. Thank you for
Yeah.
fleshing it out just a little bit more.
And I
The
think I'm going
Go
to
on.
add to that real fast too, that something that came to mind is that I think that, oh God, did I lose it? What was a good one too? Um, oh, it was the experience of being in that speaking circle. It was like the feeling that I had always been searching for, of just that like unconditional acceptance. Like, this is what it feels like to be heard. This is what it feels like to be seen. This is what it feels like to be accepted. And it was something that I had been longing for my whole life and had never experienced until that moment.
Pretty profound. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very.
No wonder you stayed on the path. Well, let's see. Let's move forward because I know that you have your own podcast now, and I'm excited about joining you. And so between the last few years and where you are now, having done, I think, the mindfulness-based training program, and
Mhm,
you would
mhm.
call yourself a mindfulness teacher or so say
Yeah,
some more about that journey.
yeah, it's like I said, it's all still a journey and I'm figuring it out day by day. But yeah, I took the mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher training, which is what when I had originally taken that program as a participant uh years earlier, that was the other like super transformational thing that happened in my life, was learning how to meditate and learning mindfulness through that program. And I had wanted to teach it ever since. And so I finally did the teacher training program. I'm still in it's a years long process. But I'm now qualified to teach the program, and with that I'm teaching and coaching people individually and loving doing that. Especially the individual sessions, because then I actually can incorporate the speaking circles work and the mindfulness and just, whatever people are working through in their lives. And uh, so that's an amazing experience. And then I'm working on launching a podcast. I haven't released anything yet, so I'm still in the
Oh,
baby phases of
okay.
it, of recording. Yeah. And so I'm recording a few episodes and then it'll be launched. So this episode might come out before any of mine have yet, but maybe around the same
Uh-huh.
time.
Well, say more about what the purpose of it is then. What are you doing?
There's a few purposes. One is, just marketing, letting people know who I am and what I do, and uh, why they might want to have anything to do with me
Uh-huh.
and what I do. And also I've been wanting to do a podcast for years, and I really just want to have cool conversations with cool people. And for years, I actually thought about starting a podcast and calling it Cool Conversations with Cool People. But right now I'm focusing on the mindfulness aspect, and it might shift shape as I get into it. But yeah, exploring, as you mentioned in the bio, just this messiness that we all experience, and it shows up a lot when we meditate and when we practice mindfulness. And that's when people often think that there's something wrong with them, they're doing it wrong. And so it's like, no, messiness is part of being human. And when we practice mindfulness, we're meeting our humanity, which might be messy at times. And so let's explore that and let's talk. And so I'm just excited to have conversations that I want to have with people, and talk about what they do and things that I'm interested in that overlap with the mindfulness. And so yeah, it's I'm looking forward to how it might take shape as it
evolve.
launches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned coaching. How do people find you?
Yeah. So my website, themessymeditator.com, and on Instagram, it's the.messy.meditator. The dots are important because someone has the Messy Meditator and her name is Jules. So that can be very confusing for people, I'm
Yes.
sure. So,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and LinkedIn, Julia Rebecca Miron,
Uh-huh.
or the LinkedIn / yeah.
Uh-huh. Great. Well, we'll certainly have it on the show notes. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, and would love to open up just into a kind of like a speaking circle moment, listen into
Mm.
this coming to a completion with our conversation, and listen to what might want to be communicated before we end.
Okay. So you want me to just go, or you want me to, or
No,
you
you
go,
go.
or
You.
okay.
This is your opportunity to leave us with whatever
Okay.
wants to be, whatever you
Okay.
listen into this now moment and you want to be
Okay.
leaving us with.
Well, starting with that stillness and just gratitude for this experience. It's been nice, kind of remembering. You were asking questions about the past, and it's been nice to remember what it was that first sparked this journey. And yeah, I think just I find myself wanting to say something really poignant and powerful as like a parting words, but just sometimes stillness is the best thing that we can leave people with.
That helps me go inside of myself and feel the power and the goodness of stillness, and also surround myself with a sense of, because right now it is so chaotic out in the world, and to feel like stillness is within reach. So I loved stillness as a parting thought. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.